This and more coming up on The Whitney Reynolds Show.
In the 80s, they weren't familiar with autism. I have a hard time reading people. I can be a lot more forward than most people, and it turns people off.
Well, MRKH has impacted every corner of my life, but it didn't have to be so difficult. So if I can take these skills that I already have and at least help one girl, then it would be worth it.
Welcome to The Whitney Reynolds Show. Today we hear from people who refuse to be defined by labels. Join us as we learn what they are doing to redefine what it is to be free. Here we believe your story matters.
I think the resilience started like when my family said, this is really bad, like when you wake up, you have to like keep going.
I was that story, the one that needed a safe space.
The key to success is taking risks.
So we created it.
Everybody fails, everybody takes that one big hit. What's important is standing back up and keep going.
You are watching The Whitney Reynolds Show. Be careful.
So I was born with something called Meyer-Rokitansky-Kuster-Hauser syndrome. So for short, it's MRKH, and it's a reproductive issue where you're born without a uterus and an underdeveloped or an absent vagina. So you have ovaries, but you don't have the other parts.
We sat down with Rima Zigaitis, who refuses to be labeled by her condition. Instead of hiding behind her diagnosis, she is working to break the stigma surrounding MRKH and help others cope with this condition.
But I wasn't getting my period. And by the time I was 16, that's enough to be curious about, to find out what was going on. And we didn't expect anything to be wrong, but just to make sure.
And there were no other signs prior to this that anything, it was just the period.
Right.
Okay.
So backstory with MRKH, you're developing, you get breasts, your shape changes, all the other, what they call secondary sex characteristics are right on target. And people don't get their periods for a variety of reasons. So we did go to the gynecologist and they did an exam, and initially he misdiagnosed me. And they thought it was what they call an imperforate hymen. So they thought my hymen just didn't break through to let the period through. You know, at that time, without internet to do research or anything like that, it was really just following the doctor's guidance. And so with the second opinion, they did the exam and thought, okay, I think they were starting to suspect something. So they took me in for a laparoscopy, which is when you go under anesthesia and they put like a little needle into your abdomen and they look around and see what's going on. And so they were able to identify that, in fact, there was no uterus and there was no cervix and there was no vaginal canal.
And when you got the full scope, what did your little 16-year-old brain go to?
There were some big decisions, right? Because at the time, there's some treatment options you can have.
At the age of 16, Rima underwent a laparoscopy to better understand her condition and to also wrap her mind around living with MRKH. You've lived through this and you're using it to empower people now. What do you wish you could go back and tell yourself then?
I think I would like to tell myself that it'll be fine, you know, but you can I still get tears that come up thinking about what I went through then. Learning to have your emotions and deal with them instead of burying them. It's at every stage of your life, like when you're dating or building a family or not building a family, deciding what to do, your friends having babies or your friends having grandchildren and menopause. All of it can be very triggering.
When did you get to the point where you wanted to use this to help others?
Sitting on a beach in California with a good friend of mine, and two things happened. First, a man walked by and he was really scarred on one side of his body. It looked like he had been in some sort of a burn. And I thought to myself, oh my God, he's so lucky. All his scars are on the outside. He doesn't have to hide them. And in that moment, I realized that how much energy I had been putting to hiding everything, hiding my feelings, hiding the condition, hiding the information, but it didn't have to be so difficult. So if I can take these skills that I already have and at least help one girl have like a smoother journey of it, then it would be worth it.
I just want to champion you to keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for the platform.
Hey everyone, it's Whit, and I am in Waco, where so much of my journey began. But today we're talking about a unique situation happening right here.
How can you put these old hymns, very old hymns, into a rock pop setting and immerse people into this sound that they've never heard before with these words?
We're talking Christmas in July, traditional holiday tunes turned rock and roll. This is a production with a twist.
Okay, rock and roll Christmas story. Well,
Is that what you would call it?
maybe a rock opera.
Oh, a rock opera.
A concert telling of the nativity story is kind of what we've used to describe it in the past. It's really hard to nail down.
How did you bring your gift into this?
I was brought into being executive producer of He Rules the World because it resonated with me as a parent. And these 20 plus years of law and accounting and being a compliance officer and all the organization that it takes, all of the interacting with, bosses and colleagues and talking to boards, just all that goes into that. Now I want you to still do what you're doing, but now I want you to use your resources and your talents to help bring He Rules the World to other families.
In 2018, I took my daughter to go see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and they do a Christmas production every year, 6 weeks on the road with 2 different units crisscrossing the country, and they've been doing it for 25 years at this point. It is the longest running national tour in U.S. history.
And your little antenna went up when you took her. You're like,
And I'm there and I'm going, this is really cool. They've got lights and lasers, LED, pyrotechnics, big guitar solos, huge lifts that take the guitar players 150 feet over the audience. I'm like, that's cool. And musically, I'm like, these guys are really good. They're very, very good. And I'm like, well, I can do that. And then later I'm seeing some of the production stuff and I'm like, well, I can do that. I know what they're doing. And then later on, it's like, well, why am I not doing this?
Right.
Absolutely love what they do. But for me, it was like, okay, well, what can I do that's in this space that uses my talents, uses my style of music a little bit more than what their style of music is, because I have to be true to my musical voice, so it is different there. And what can I do in that same kind of space that they're in to make this mine, but also do something that, and it just stood out to me that I just need to tell the story of Christmas.
David Gesham, known for his years as Phantom, is also singing a new tune, both in life and on the stage. He explains how this unexpected encore has helped him find deeper purpose.
After I've done all those Phantoms.
How many did you do?
Altogether, I performed the role of Phantom about 1,500 times. So
Say that again.
1,500. I know the words, and in 2 languages. I did it in German and in English. So
You gotta be kidding me.
It's addictive. I mean, I did it all those times, and then I was in the ensemble on Broadway for thousands of shows of
That's
Phantom.
incredible.
Yeah. No, to have come from that, and then I live in Frisco, Texas, just north of Dallas, run a voice studio, sing concerts across the country. When I was asked to do this, I thought, what an interesting thought, right? What a thought. How can you put these old hymns, very old hymns, into a rock pop setting and immerse people into this sound that they've never heard before with these words?
Right.
That's what got me the first. And then I heard the music and I was sold. Peter's music was written so brilliantly and the story is totally connected together.
Do you ever feel like you have to keep up with your last project?
No, I don't feel like I have to. I think what it was a hard transition having done Phantom so long.
Yeah.
Right? That to go into where you're not doing a show every night, we're doing 2 shows on Saturday and 2 shows on Sunday, and then to move back down to live in Frisco to where you weren't doing shows every night.
Right.
That was hard. The joy of being able to still be asked to perform, because as you get older, you start to realize I don't have the sprightness that you'll see in these younger kids that are on the, not kids, I call them kids. They're my students.
I watched you though. I watched you, and you still have that sparkle, that showmanship, that stage presence.
That's what I love the most. It's the rush of being able to give that energy to the audience, right? And then see their faces come back at you with that same energy. It lifts you up, right? But it's been a hard year. This last year for me, I was diagnosed with cancer. So lymphoma, everything changes when you get diagnosed.
Going to that diagnosis, was that something that being in this project that is faith-based helped you get through?
100%.
Really?
100%. The greatest love in the world is there for me and is always there for me, no matter what happens. Once I realized that life has seasons, right? Everything has its season, right? Everything will come and go. And change is the only regular in this world, right? It's the only regular in this world. And the world is changing as we speak. Every second, the world is changing. Good or bad, it's changing. And to have the opportunity to try to change the world for good and use your gift that God gave you, how can you turn that down?
That's powerful.
And that's the wrap. From Waco.
Today we're talking about breaking the stereotypes. And Jennifer, you're one that has done that since you were a kiddo. Tell us about your journey.
So when I was very young, I did not respond like normal children. In the 80s, they weren't familiar with autism. And so my parents had concerns and thought maybe I was just delayed, no big deal. It was my pediatrician that had expressed to my parents that this isn't normal.
And what was it that they were saying isn't normal?
I cried when I was held. I crawled into dark spaces. I didn't like to be around people. The early intervention is what saved my life. I was diagnosed as mentally retarded at 18 months old and told that I would never live a normal life. There are so many different versions of autism and so many different behaviors because of autism. OCD, epilepsy, things that are accumulated with someone with autism. And autism is never curable in the sense of the way we in society look at it. But there are preventative ways to help someone cope and work within society the best way they know how.
You said something before we started taping, and you said sometimes you're misunderstood. What are people misunderstanding?
I have a hard time reading people, and I can be a lot more forward than most people, and it turns people off.
Could it also be your secret to success?
It has been in a lot of ways, but it hasn't come without pain. I've been very successful in so many ways in my life that people would say, I wish I had that, but I'm lonely. I feel that people get frustrated with me a lot easier than they do somebody else. And the people that I work with who know me know my intentions are good. And I've been blessed with a business partner who has worked with me for 6 to 7 years and sees through all the crap that happens. I work so hard to help other people grow because I know what it's like to not grow and to feel like I'm behind growth.
When did you develop your dream of being an actress?
At a very young age, maybe 3, 4, I idolized a lot of characters in shows that I would watch. Back then, I would mimic behaviors of individuals that I wanted to be like. It was a spark inside of me that I wanted to have that life, or I wanted to have that experience, or I wanted to be a part of that. Like, I would find someone who might have skills that I wish I had, or had friends that I wish I had. What was happening is I was losing a sense of identity. And at the same time, I was scaring them. What I can tell you is that I tell people if there is something I'm doing that is a boundary, that I'm communicating a little bit too aggressively, or I'm too excited and my excitement is overwhelming, tell me, and I'll scale it back. Some people just don't want to communicate. They'd rather talk behind my back than to me. Or they'll tell me to my face when they've already gotten to the point of I'm done. And then I'm left wanting to fix it. Or people say, how are you autistic? You don't look like you have autism. I don't know what that means because I don't know what someone with autism is supposed to look like.
And you're also doing it for other people with autism. You're also making a way for people that are coming after you.
I love what I do, and I finally found a place that allows me to tailor my passion and channel it through filmmaking and through the production company that I started, giving opportunities to interns, to other crew that have never worked in the industry. And I love communicating and giving them the opportunity to experience what I so long wanted to have a part of. I want people to feel welcome because I know what it's like to feel like the door shuts on your face over and over and over again, and it's the most painful feeling. And sometimes I wonder, what's the point of waking up? Because they're just not gonna want me there.
How do you conquer that feeling?
Sometimes it's me being in bed all day. Other times it's reaching out to those who I know are in my corner, and thank God they are, to remind me that there are a lot of things about me that are worth, the life worth living. My family.
Anybody watching, we all have these tough seasons.
Yeah.
And you keep pushing on and believing in yourself that you'll get there. What would you say to them?
I would say your son or daughter is feeling the same pain that you are, and they too want to be successful. And just remember, you're not alone in the pain. They need you. They need your love. They need your reminder, your reassurance that it's going to be okay and they're going to succeed. Because having people believe in you does so much for that marathon.
Our next guest is choosing not to be defined by a low point in his life, and whose passion is fulfilling his dreams and serving those around him. Let's take a look.
With your permission, I'm going to offer you a suggestion that's going to create more happiness in your life.
Glenn is a celebrity hypnotherapist who began his career at a desk job. After a moment of high anxiety, he left his corporate position and found hypnotherapy. Now he lives out his passion for helping others around the world, providing that it's never too late to make a change.
I have clients I work with all over this planet. I have subscribers to my HypnoVault products all over the world. Now I'm doing seminars. Now I'm getting to share this cool stuff with people like you.
To the person at home, because your story is twofold. There's one, moving past the anxiety. What would you say to them?
Yeah. When we are in depression and when we are filled with anxiety, it is always because we are not connected to a purpose. And that's when we feel lost. And that's when we're going through fear. The first thing is fear. Oh my gosh, I was always brought up to believe that, paycheck to paycheck is how you live your life. The security of a check, a boss, a company to help you. They give you your benefits.
I also want to go to the person that's watching that has to take that leap, because so many of our stories do require a leap.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
I would say we need to remember what's the best thing that can happen. I don't believe in being haphazard. Be strategic, right? So that means, all right, I'm going to leave this job in 3 months. I'm not going to go out to dinner. I'm going to tell my friends I'm taking it, save every penny. Read a book or two on strategy, and then make a strategic choice to change your life. That's what I do when I coach people. You don't have to do this crazy, I quit my job, I have no money, I'm going to believe, yes, I believe in manifesting and attracting, but I don't believe in being foolish,
So have a plan.
Have a plan. And when you have a plan, guess what happens? A plan equals purpose.
And there it goes full circle again. Glenn, thank you so much for coming on. Next, we turn to Willie Robertson from a familiar show, Duck Dynasty. His newest movie highlights a major turning point in his family's history and serves as a reminder that the past label you might have does not define you.
I could track it down to two people in southern Arkansas, who changed their life and, got a hold of this faith and then lived completely different lives. And so that it's so important. So I just want to write that. And a lot of the stories that I have, that I've talked to someone that may change their life, forever just by being positive. And like what you talk about, it's giving hope, you know, because I think when we get down and we just, especially in the world now, it's just you start looking around and everything seems so hopeless and everybody's angry and mad. And so I felt like we needed that, you know. Even Dynasty, when it came out, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air. Like, okay, we can laugh, and you know, we're not talking about all the things that are going on. I get it. There's a lot of stuff going in the world, but there can be hope and happiness, you know, and love and, you know, peace and forgiveness, you know, all these things.
We chatted with Willie, whose family rose to fame when they opened up their lives to the camera on Duck Dynasty, a reality show. This peek into their daily chronicles showed the world of a family that prayed together, hunted ducks, and did good old family dinners. His newest project is keeping it real, but opening up the world to the rock bottom moment that created the foundation everything else has been built on.
I think it was hard for them to go back, basically at the worst season of their life, and kind of memorializing that with the movie was tough. And so, but they were willing to do that to help other people. They were like, if this can help other marriages and other people that have gotten their lives in a mess, this can help them. And so that's how we kind of talked Dad into doing it and saying, we think we should, you know, because we didn't see ourselves doing this movie right out of the gate, but it was just it's such a great story. And so we kind of felt like if you watch Duck Dynasty and you appreciated that, then you got to go back and see this, because none of it happened. You know, it almost was all, you know, split up and was over before it ever started.
You can do just about anything you set your mind to, Phil Robertson.
I mean, you own your story. Either you're going to tell it or someone else is going to tell it about you. So I think the fact that we can, you know, run from it or hide from it. And I think in society, I think we all would like that. And we all have to deal with, you know, things that we've done and mistakes we've made, you know, some giant, some small, you know, but we have to deal with those. And certainly if you're married, you have to deal with that. Certainly if you have children, you have to deal with that. You know, like being able to do that, learn from that, grow from that, and not, you know, and not just throw everyone away and cancel everybody. And we're not, you know, because eventually I guess we'll all get canceled, you know, because it's like we've all said stuff and done things. And so, you know, just being able to open up and share that, because once it's out, you know, like in any counseling session or anything, you know, once you release that, it's out, you know, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I can move on. And I think even this movie, even I think for Mom and Dad, especially for Dad, you know, as embarrassed as he was and as awful as he was able to say it's out there, you know, that's me, that's who I was. And hopefully now you've seen a different person since then.
In a world where labels are placed on most things, we heard from people today who rebelled against what society thinks they should be. An inspiration that forging our own path is not only possible, but rewarding too. Remember, your story matters. This is coming up on our Season 8 finale.
The disaster in Joplin, you know, the costliest tornado in U.S. history. 161 of our friends and neighbors were killed in 32 minutes. I was a school superintendent at the time. We had 7 students and a staff member killed. I had a near-death experience myself, and big tree limbs that were laying on the ground that were being pulled across the ground from my left in front of me to the right. And then the wind immediately shifted directions again, and that's when the debris hit me and it hit the car.
You know, as time went on, my father became very possessive with my mother. They were going through a divorce, and you know, one day he decided that it was time for it all to end, and he took his life and my mother's life. When I was 14, I really wanted a change of life. We grew up very poor and wanted to have something greater than what I was surrounded with.